On this episode of RevHang, Ben and I talk about the MotoGP Australian Grand Prix, the MotoGP Malaysian Grand Prix, and the Formula One United States Grand Prix in Texas. Let's do it. Hello everybody and welcome to RevHang. I'm your host Nathan Nevue, and alongside me today is my fellow gearhead and co-host Ben Bagley. How's it going, Ben?
Oh man, that race at Coda today made my day feel way less hectic knowing what went on there.
Yeah. I also had a pretty low-key day compared to most of those drivers out there.
Yeah, makes me excited to try to go next year.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. I might join you. I might do that. Might go to Japan as well. Haven't quite decided yet. But Japan would be. I think if I can do that, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah,
that
you gotta
be so
do
much
that.
Fun. Yeah, but anyway, we have a couple of MotoGP races to go over before we get into F1. So let's start off with the Australian Grand Prix at Phillip Island. We'll go through the top 10 in qualifying to give you some context. On pole position was Jorge Martin, followed by Marc Marquez, Francesco Bagnaia, Aleix Espargaro, Fabio Quartararo, Johann Zarco, Luca Marini, Jack Miller, Marco Bezzecchi, and Alex Rins, finishing the top 10. Martin got a good start at the beginning of the race and took the lead early on with Marquez in tow. On the fourth lap, Quartararo outbraked himself and ended up at the back of the pack after going extremely wide off the track. On lap 8, Alex Rins was able to make a pass on Bagnaia for P3 after cutting his way through the field, starting 10th. Pretty good start for him. On lap 9, Alex Marquez and Jack Miller came together, ending both of their races. It was the accident was completely Alex Marquez's fault. He just missed his braking point, and it was actually a pretty scary accident because Jack Miller took a while to get up, and he kind of Alex Marquez's bike actually crushed Miller between the two bikes, and it was pretty bad. But both riders ended up leaving the track under their own strength, so Miller was okay. He ended up racing the next race, and so did Marquez, but Marquez did receive a double long lap penalty in the next race because of that. On lap 11, Quartararo washed out and ended his race in the gravel. He's had pretty bad last few races. Kind of let his championship slip away from him, and now Bagnaia is poised and ready to take it in the last race of the season. But anyway, on lap 14th, Alex Rins made a move on Marc Marquez and Jorge Martin to take the lead of the race until the next lap when Bagnaia passed Rins for the lead. And then over the course, the rest of the race, the lead kept switching hands, and it was just a pretty hectic fight between the top four as they fought for the last spot, the top spot on the podium. And then there was a last lap battle for the lead between Rins, Marquez, and Bagnaia, and then the top 7 ended up finishing the race within 2 seconds of the leader, who was Alex Rins. At the end of the race, he ended up winning his first race of the season. It's been a while for him. Completing the podium was Marc Marquez and Francesco Bagnaia, and 4 and 5 were Marco Bezzecchi and Enea Bastianini. 6 through 10 was Luca Marini, Jorge Martin, Johann Zarco, Aleix Espargaro, and Brad Binder. 11 through 15 was Paul Espargaro, Miguel Oliveira, Cal Crutchlow, Darren Binder, and Remy Gardner. 16 through 20 was Raul Fernandez, Maverick Vinales, Joan Mir, Tetsuda Nakashima, and Fabio Di Gianantonio. And that rounds off the finishers. And then we had 4 non-finishers, and they were Franco Morbidelli, Fabio Quartararo, Jack Miller, and Alex Marquez.
Okay, it might be a while since I've watched the last MotoGP, but isn't Alex Rins one of the ones who crashes a lot of the time?
Yeah, he's had a rough season.
Yeah,
he's kind of had a lot of DNFs.
Well, good for him.
He used to, yeah, for sure. He used to win a lot and podium a lot, and he's kind of dropped back in the last couple of years, I think. So it's good to see him back up at the front of the field.
Yeah, now I just need Joan Mir to mirror that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's strange with MotoGP how much things shuffle around, because Joan Mir was, he's been a championship contender several times. I don't think he's ever won one, but he's been in the hunt multiple times for championships, and now he's finishing 18th and kind of back half of the field most of the time.
Yeah, crazy how things change.
Yeah. Well, let's
like
move on
to... the location of the race.
Ah,
that was a segue that I was preparing for.
There you go.
It's a great bit. Anyways, the next race they went to was the Malaysian GP in Sepang, MY.
Malaysia.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay. I was worried there was like an extra province in there that I was just blanking on, but okay, yeah, Sepang, Malaysia. Anyways, in qualifying to start off, we had Jorge Martin, Enea Bastianini, and Marc Marquez in the top three, followed by Marco Bezzecchi and Alex Rins in fifth. We're just going to go through the top 10 in this because really you'll find out who wins later on. Number 6, we had Luca Marini. 7th, Franco Morbidelli, followed by Maverick Vinales, Francesco Bagnaia, that was weird, and Elias Espargaro rounding out 10th. So, Malaysia. Martin ended up taking the lead off the line, and Bagnaia made his way up to second by turn 2. So that was a pretty good acceleration. He's qualified 9th, so he's able to get up there pretty quick, but Martin was able to extend his lead quite a bit despite that. About halfway through the race, lap 7, Martin lost traction on his front tire and ended up washing into the gravel. That actually ended his race. He wasn't able to recover, as is the case with MotoGP when they meet gravel. And
most of the time, yeah.
Yeah. And that brought Bagnaia to the lead. On lap 11, Bastianini made a move on Bagnaia for the lead. However, on lap 14, Bagnaia ended up trying to parry back, made a lunge, and made it stick. Bastianini stayed on Bagnaia's kill for the rest of the race to keep it interesting, but it was a foregone conclusion, and Bagnaia crossed the line first. So, in the results, of course, we have Francesco Bagnaia in first. Second, we have Enea Bastianini, followed by good old Fabio Quartararo. In fourth, we have Marco Bezzecchi. Fifth, we have Alex Rins, Jack Miller, Marc Marquez, Brad Binder, Johan Zarco, and Elias Espargaro in 10th. Following that, we have Franco Morbidelli, Cal Crutchlow, Miguel Oliveira, Paul Espargaro, Raul Fernandez in 15th. Followed by Maverick Vinales, Alex Marquez, Remy Gardner, and Joan Mir in 19th, again running at that bottom group of finishers. And then for our DNFs, we have Darren Binder, Fabio Di Gianantonio, Jorge Martin, who we talked about having that lead and then washing out, Tetsuya Nagashima, and Luca Marini.
Alrighty, that wraps up the Malaysian Grand Prix for MotoGP. We only have one race left in the season at Valencia, and if unless something goes horribly wrong for Pecco Bagnaia, he will walk away with the championship. I'm pretty sure the only way he loses the championship at this point is if Quartararo wins the race and he DNFs.
Good to know.
I'm pretty sure that's the conditions there. So all he's got to do is pretty much stay on his bike and finish in the points.
Yep. Yeah. So I take it. He probably won't be driving conservatively, but I'm sure he'll be taking extra measures to make sure that nothing unfortunate happens.
He'll probably give some people some extra space, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. So let's move on to our paddock news for the week. Mostly, actually all F1 news I've got for you today. Starting with Red Bull. Red Bull has broken the budget cap in 2021, and we are still awaiting news on their punishment. This has been the story for the last couple weeks. We've known since Japan that Red Bull broke the budget cap officially, and we for the last 2 weeks are still waiting on what the punishment's going to be. The FIA has been a little sketchy about it, not super transparent, which isn't great.
No, and granted, it is kind of a tricky situation, especially depending on where Red Bull spent the funds, which it sounds like Red Bull's kind of been dancing around. I think the original answer they were giving was catering. Maybe that was just a meme that I saw on Formula Dink.
Yeah, no,
it all
that's
blends together now. But
yeah, that's what they're saying is it was catering that sent them over budget. But I mean, that's just shuffling around what you're calling going over budget.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah. So the real question from a lot of teams is how much did Red Bull benefit from going over the cost cap, and would things have turned out differently if they hadn't gone over? Would Mercedes have been able to keep a little bit more speed and finish out the championship without any sort of crisis or what's the word I'm looking for? The controversy. Yep, that's the C word. Or would Red Bull still be in the same place? Obviously, Red Bull thinks that nothing would have changed if they did, which is what they're saying. Oh, it was all spent on food. But
right,
it's hard. It's hard to say.
It's a really tough situation. It's hard to say if anything really would have changed. But I mean, rules are rules, and honestly, even though I'm admittedly a pretty big Red Bull fan, I'd be kind of disappointed in the FIA if they didn't get a big punishment, and I feel like the FIA is avoiding doing the thing that they know they have to do, which is probably dock Red Bull points from last season, because a fine doesn't solve the problem. It just, in fact, that will make it worse, because other teams like McLaren and Mercedes have already said that if Red Bull only gets a fine for this, that they're gonna not care about the budget cap and overspend next year.
Yeah, I feel like we might have talked about it last podcast, but I feel like looking more at a future penalty rather than a post penalty would not necessarily make people happier, but I think it would be a lot less controversial. It might still be able to place an impact, if there's a massive penalty going forward into the 2023 season, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I know we did talk about this a little bit last time. We didn't go super in depth because we didn't know for sure. It was not confirmed whether or not Red Bull has gone over. It was just rumored. But yeah, I feel like a future punishment would serve the purpose well. People would still be upset because, of course, I mean, people are always going to be upset no matter which way it goes. But
F1 is not a non-partisan sport by any means.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like going back and taking the championship away, it would just suck so much.
That really rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah, and I don't know, but I don't really know what else they can do other than a future punishment. But who knows? I don't know. We're just gonna have to wait and see. We were supposed to get some clarity on it today, but unfortunately and very sadly, Red Bull's co-founder Dietrich Mateschitz passed away on October 22nd, the morning of qualifying, and that hit the Red Bull team pretty hard, and you could see it just on everybody's faces, and understandably, because he was a pioneer in the sport, and really, I mean, he's the reason Red Bull exists and has two teams on the grid. A huge part of the sport, big loss for everybody. And as a result of that, the FIA has pushed the announcement, or I don't know if they're having more meetings about it, but they've kind of put all of this controversial stuff on hold for a little bit to let the team mourn, I guess, which is nice. But I don't know. I don't think they can keep putting it off.
It's prolonging the inevitable. You can only have so many meetings and so many not meetings.
Yeah. And it's like, I really hope that they figure something out and are able to set a precedent with this, because I don't want every season the results to be up in the air until October when we get all of their budgets back. Because now it's like we don't know if a championship's actually won until almost a year later, and that's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, just a bit. So I don't think that's the way to go.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, moving on, in our paddock news segment, several drivers were granted F1 tests in for free practice 1 in Austin, including Alex Palou for McLaren, Antonio Giovinazzi for Haas, Robert Schwartzman for Ferrari, and Logan Sargent for Williams. Most of them had pretty good tests, except for Antonio Giovinazzi, who crashed the car after just 3 laps, which doesn't bode very well for his hopes of returning to F1 with Haas next year.
Oh, man. What a
poor guy.
What a thing to unpack.
Yeah. Gunther Steiner said he wasn't very impressed with Antonio's display. So I would, reading between the lines, I'd say Giovinazzi's out of contention for the seat.
Just let my boy Mick have another season.
Yeah.
You know,
I honestly...
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I honestly think that Schumacher should be the one that gets the seat for next year. I could see why they might want to pull Hülkenberg back in just because he's so experienced, but I don't know. I just feel like Schumacher's already established in that team. He'll be going into his 3rd season, his 2nd season in the new cars, and he's done so much better in the second half of this season than he did in the first half. I really think he deserves a second shot. He did have that one moment in Japan last race, but you know, I don't know. I think they would be wise to keep Schumacher around for one more year.
Yeah, I agree. But unfortunately, we're not the ones who make decisions at Haas, so our beliefs will hopefully not fall on deaf ears, but there's only one way to find out.
Yep. Some exciting news for this side of the pond in the good old United States. It's been confirmed that American F2 driver Logan Sargent will get the 2nd Williams seat in 2023 as long as he earns his super license by the end of the F2 season in Abu Dhabi. I believe he has to finish in the top 6th in the F2 championship. I don't know where he has to finish in the race to guarantee that off the top of my head, but I don't think he has to win or anything like that. I think he just has to kind of get some solid points. So it's still kind of a toss-up. But we'll see. I would love to see Sargent get into F1 because he struggled so hard in F3 to get to F2 for so long. And I believe he's in his 1st or 2nd season in F2 now, but he's finally getting his shot with Williams. And I'd love to see an American on the grid, even if he's not on a great team.
Yeah. I'm not going to talk about super license stuff. Okay. I'm not going to. We talked about it so much.
Yeah. We went over that with the whole Colton Herta debacle. But yeah, so there's not going to be at least we know there's not going to be an exception made for Logan Sargent, you know? They've already set that precedent pretty hard, saying, yeah, we don't bend on the super license rules.
Yeah, but no matter how stupid they are. Okay, anyways, let's move on.
Anyways, yeah. That's the end of our paddock news segment. We'll move on to Zoomer rumors. The name is still up in the air. Please reach out and tell us to change it. We want you to. Hit us up on Twitter. It's not a very high bar, so don't worry. There's no bad ideas out there.
The first idea that somebody says will be what it is, so...
Yeah.
It can really be anything. Doesn't even have to be related to racing.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I don't want to put it out there on the internet to anything on the internet, but...
We are so desperate for engagement.
Yeah, that too. We're just being honest here. But anyway, Zoomer rumors. The only rumor I have on this week is that there are talks of Daniel Ricciardo becoming the reserve driver for Red Bull Racing in 2023, which was kind of a shock to me. I was very surprised to hear that. We've been hearing him talking to Mercedes for so long now that now this rumor drops on the internet. And I could honestly see this happening.
Yeah, I could too.
I think it'd be cool for him to go back to Red Bull. I mean, he would never get a seat in a million years.
Yeah, no.
But he's already got the relationships there.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully it doesn't get too far down the pipeline again to never crawl back out. if a seat does arise. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm kind of lukewarm on this. I think it's nice that he has a place to be, even if it's just reserve, but I think maybe him being reserve, maybe, I don't want to say it limits his appeal to the rest of the field, but especially on Red Bull, which is such a tight ecosystem with their drivers, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that opens more opportunities for him or less.
Yeah, it's kind of I don't know. I just don't see him getting a spot in 2024 either.
No.
I don't know. It's really sad because I love Danny Rick, and he's so many people's favorite driver, but McLaren kind of just ruined his career. It's really, really unfortunate, and he's already...
Be new Hulkenberg.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I could see that happening too if like he could jump in and replace a driver that is injured or sick next year. That could be. But we'll see. I don't know. He said in an interview this week that he is not going to IndyCar definitely because ovals scare him really bad.
What?
Yeah, that's what he said. He said
There's only 5. He doesn't even have to race on those 5.
Right, like he could do what Roman Grosjean did his first year. Grosjean didn't drive on ovals for the same reason because they scared the crap out of him, which is fair because ovals are terrifying. But yeah, Grosjean didn't do ovals and he almost won Rookie of the Year. Yeah. So I don't know. I just think Daniel is he's got his heart set so hard on F1 still that he might just be making excuses. But I can't. I'm not Daniel. I'm not in his head, so I don't know what he's thinking. I don't know. Maybe he's thinking of trying WEC out, like World Endurance, something like that. IMSA maybe. But all I know is I hope that this is not the end of Danny Rick's racing career. He's got a lot of other things going on in his life. He's got a fashion brand, and I think he's even got a wine brand. So there's nothing saying that he's gonna stay even in the racing world forever. But that would be a real big shame, I think.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see what happens with Mr. Danny Rick. But let's move on to the United States Grand Prix. I have this mislabeled up here. United States Grand Prix in Austin, Texas. The Singapore Grand Prix. Yeah. No. United States in Austin, Texas. We'll go through the top 10 in qualifying to give you some context. On pole position was Carlos Sainz, followed by Verstappen, Hamilton, Russell, and Stroll in 5th place. Really good qualifying from the Canadian. 6 through 10 was Norris, Bottas, Albon, Perez, and Vettel. I said that weird, Vettel. Perez got a 5-place grid penalty, so he got knocked down after qualifying. Leclerc started 12th. After taking a 10-place penalty. And then we also had some other guys like Ocon started from the pit lane and Tsunoda started from the back after they made changes to their cars.
Yeah, a smattering even of power unit, gearbox, etc. changes.
Yeah.
So that explains the wacky starting grid.
Yeah, a little bit. When the race started, Sainz had a pretty bad start, forcing him to fight Verstappen into turn 1. As they went around the corner, Russell outbraked himself and locked up and made contact with Carlos Sainz and spun him out and ended his race because Sainz had either suspension or gearbox damage or both. Sebastian Vettel had a massive start, gaining several positions off the bat. He got really lucky. He was in the right place at the right time. To get around Sainz's spun car. And he gained like 4, 5, 6 positions like right off the bat. Really good start from him. Perez made his way through the field pretty quickly, making it to P4 by lap 6. Leclerc also made his way through the field quickly and got really lucky with safety car timing, promoting him up to 4th. On lap 18, Valtteri Bottas spun off and caused a safety car as his car was beached in the gravel. The race was restarted, I believe, lap 20 or 21. But then on the next lap, lap 22, Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll made contact on the back straight, ending Stroll's race. but somehow Fernando Alonso was able to continue. I honestly was so surprised. I thought for
confused.
sure that
I thought I was
like,
seeing
still
Ocon
going?
twice or something.
Yeah, he kept going down the straight, and I was like, is he gonna stop? Like, I honestly thought that maybe he was unconscious and like in neutral, rolling down the straight, or in gear even. But no, he just kept going. He hit the back of Stroll's car, which made him wheelie. About 45 degree. He was at about a 45-degree angle to the track.
Yeah.
And then slammed back down off the track as he slid into the wall and bounced off. But somehow his car was fine.
Yeah, that was so weird. I thought for sure he was done. He just was like trying to limp it back to the pit lane even. Yeah. But he just went past the pit lane. I was like, okay, I guess we're doing this.
No, I think he did box. I could be wrong, but I thought he did.
Oh, he might have.
Oh yeah, no, he definitely did because he broke like 3/4 of his front wing off.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So other than that, though, his car was pretty fine. He did have damage to his right wing mirror, which ended up flying off the car later on in the race, and well, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But anyway, on lap 30, Leclerc was caught and passed Perez into the hairpin off the back straight. 6 laps later, Verstappen got caught up in the pits with a bad pit stop. Ended up being about a 12-second stop, allowing Leclerc and Hamilton to pass him, which just made the race super spicy. It wasn't. It was looking like an easy Verstappen win before that. On lap 39, Max sent it down the inside of Leclerc to take second place. And then 2 laps later, Hamilton was able to pass Sebastian Vettel to take the lead of the race. Vettel was actually in the lead of the race for a considerable amount of time.
So incredible.
Yeah. It was so cool. It was like,
what year is it? I'm watching so much higher.
Yeah, I'm watching Hamilton pass Vettel for the lead of the race. I'm like, what year is it?
Yeah,
it was awesome to see Seb up there. I think it's really cool. He's only got a few races left, so he's really fighting really hard with people, and you can tell he's getting all he can out of racing before he's done.
Yeah. Oh man, that lap 41, he was still up there, and there's no way. Hoping against all hope. I'm not even a Vettel fan, but just hoping it's like he could get a podium. I'm not even expecting first, but if he can get a podium, then this would be one of the greatest races I've ever seen. And then he got a messed up pit stop.
Yeah. Such a shame.
So
ended up with a 16-second pit stop, courtesy of Aston Martin.
Classic.
Really unfortunate, but he did fight his way back into the points by the end of the race. With 6 laps to go, Max Verstappen caught up to Hamilton and passed him on the back straight, and they ended up fighting each other until about turn 19 that lap, which is right about at the end of the lap. But Max ended up in front and held the lead for the rest of the race. He crossed the line, and on the last lap, Sebastian Vettel, who was making his way back through the pack after the bad pit stop, ended up passing Kevin Magnussen around the outside of turn 19. What an absolute dive bomb by Seb. The guy was on the edge around the outside. You could see his rear tires were going all over the place, bouncing around, because that's a bumpy track too.
Yeah.
But he kept it pinned and made the dive down the inside of the next turn and took that position from K-Mag, and wow.
Crazy racing.
What a series of events that was. But that was the end of the race. Yeah, great racing, great race overall.
Great George way to Russell summarize too. Just the entire vibe of the race is that last fight.
Right, just chaos the whole time. The fastest lap went to George Russell, and the driver of the day went to Sebastian Vettel, deservedly so.
Rightly.
Seb drove his heart out. So yeah, the results of the race. Podium was Verstappen, Hamilton, Leclerc, with Perez and Russell in 4th and 5th. 6 through 10 was Norris, Vettel, Magnussen, Tsunoda, and Ocon. 11 through 15 was Zhou, Albon, Gasly, Schumacher, and Alonso. 16 and 17, rounding off the finishers, were Ricciardo and Latifi. And then we had 3 DNFs, all crashes, and it was Stroll, Bottas, and Sainz.
Yep, and it's important to note that even though Alonso finished across the line much further up than 15th, he got a 30-second penalty, which is one of the longest penalties I've seen, aside from Latifi's 1-lap penalty. In a race. So that very impressive, Alonso.
Yeah, so Fernando Alonso finished the race in 7th place over the line, but he was called along with Sergio Perez to the stewards after the race to talk about why they continued on in the race with damaged cars, and this whole thing confused me. Haas was the one that lodged a protest after the race saying that Perez and Alonso should have been meatball flagged because they had the same amount of damage on their cars as Magnussen did the last couple times.
Yep.
So they were wondering where the consistency was, and that's completely a fair question. So both Perez and Alonso were called to the stewards to talk about that, I guess. And Alonso was given a 10-second stop and go penalty, which apparently, if that's given after the race, it transforms into a 30-second penalty. So that's where the 30 seconds comes from. They gave it to him because his wing mirror was holding on by a thread and ended up flying off during the race. And Alpine knew that and pit stopped Alonso and then sent him back out with that damage on his car without removing it or fixing it or whatever. So that's where the penalty came from, and I'm not sure why Perez didn't get one for the same reason.
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe it's because it wasn't hanging on through, like it snapped off and didn't bounce all over the track.
My only thought is Perez had the damage for several laps, probably like a good lot of laps, like probably about 10 laps, but he didn't pit, so Red Bull never had a chance to actually remove it or fix it, and they didn't meatball flag him, so Perez didn't really do anything wrong, because like Red Bull didn't even have a chance to fix it because they hadn't pit yet, whereas Alonso did pit and then was sent back out with that damage. So that's the only way I can think of that going. That's probably what it is, if I were to guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to be mad because Haas had to go through the whole thing last time, and I think it's fair, but it's annoying that the FIA seems to have chosen this as an area of zero consistency.
Yeah, it's a little strange and annoying, and it also took them about 5 hours post-race to make this announcement. So yeah. I bet you a lot of people still think that Alonso scored, what is it, like 6 points for for Alpine?
Yeah. Yeah, whereas Magnussen got meatball flagged how soon after sustaining that damage?
I don't know, a lap, 2 laps?
Yeah,
like that.
So if they had applied the same logic to these racers, then it wouldn't have been a problem, because after 2 laps of seeing that wing mirror flapping around or seeing Prez damage, then they would have been meatball flagged and it would have happened in race.
Yeah. I don't know. Obviously there's so much fluid in F1 that it's really hard to stay consistent, but at the same time it's really important, and it's been the Achilles heel of the FIA the last few years is being super inconsistent with rulings and how rules are addressed and interpreted. So I don't know. I really think they need to sort out this problem. One big bit of good news is that there is no more rotating race director. So they just have one guy directing the race instead of it switching off every week, which I think is a good thing for the sport. They've also addressed the way the safety car and recovery vehicles work in response to what happened last week in Japan with the recovery vehicle on the track. They've made it so drivers have to drive even slower, around where the safety vehicle is, or the recovery vehicle, and they also announce to the drivers and the teams that there is a recovery vehicle on the track, and they tell them exactly where it is. So good steps in the right direction. They're also implementing a, I don't remember what it was called, a dynamic virtual safety car, I think, starting next season. So I think they get to basically change the delta at different places on the track depending on what's going on. So we'll see how that works next season. But they are making steps in the right direction, which is good to see.
Yeah.
So let's get into our talking points after this race. First up, Red Bull Racing has won their first title since 2013.
Yeah.
First constructors title, I should say. Yeah, it's cool for them. They've been working at it for so long, and finally had a car that was able to win the championship, where both drivers were able to score points pretty consistently. In terms of other teams, Mercedes, they upgraded their car this week, and it seems to have worked pretty well because they had a considerable speed bump. It looked like.
It looked like they were actually competing.
It looked like they were on par, if not a little faster than the Ferraris.
Yeah. So I'd be a little afraid if I was Ferrari right now, especially with how consistent both Mercedes drivers have been.
Yeah.
Just absolute machines.
With Mercedes here, and at this point in the season, I honestly would not be surprised if they won the championship next season. Because they keep saying that the core design of their car is flawed and they just don't have the money to fix it, but they know exactly what's wrong. So if they're on par with Ferrari with a fundamentally flawed car and they fix it next season, like,
big speed,
that's going to be scary.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that we'll see big things from Mercedes next season. We might have another Lewis Hamilton championship. Who knows? Maybe George Russell will beat him like he seems to be this season. Ferrari, on the other hand, seems to be dropping off a little bit. Performance-wise, I don't think they've brought any upgrades that have really worked super well in recent memory.
No, I haven't heard about any, especially.
Yeah. I think they've run out of development budget and just kind of fallen off with the other teams. They're still up there, but they're on pace more with Mercedes than Red Bull at this point. But another team that shows a lot of promise was Aston Martin. They were very fast this week.
The last week too, or last weekend.
Yeah, in Japan.
Surprisingly quick.
Yeah. I don't know where it's coming from, because they've been arguably the slowest car on the grid for most of the season.
Yeah, and it's definitely a little too late for any big swings, but it's still cool to see, and hopefully next season Alonso gets a car that can be maybe as competitive as the Alpine car is this season.
Yeah, I don't know, we'll see. I think they're on the right trajectory, though. It is interesting that he crashed into Lance Stroll today, his future teameate.
Oh, that's going to be such a great dynamic.
It's going to be an awkward conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back on the other hand, McLaren had a rough weekend. Both drivers struggled a lot in qualifying. Lando was able to make it by the skin of his teeth to Q3, and then I think put it 7th or something like that. So he did okay, but Danny Ricciardo was absolutely nowhere all weekend.
Yeah, just absent.
I don't know, man. It's really sad and hard to watch, because it almost feels like he's lost kind of a lot of his drive.
Yeah, especially at a track that he really likes, in an area that he really likes.
He's usually really good at Coda.
So poorly. It was a little disheartening. Yeah.
Yeah. Fernando Alonso had a very impressive race. He's a different breed, like, of driver.
Yeah.
He just to have a basically airplane crash, hit the wall, get the wind knocked out of you, but then decide to keep driving, have a pit stop, and then make it all the way back up to P7 by the end of the race.
Incredible.
I've never seen anything like it. It's absolutely nuts. I don't know how that car survived that race, but yeah, props to Alonso. Yeah, absolutely. Sebastian Vettel is driving very well the last couple races, like you said earlier. Did very well in Japan, and I would say did even better in the United States. He had that bad pit stop, but made it all the way back up to 8th place.
Yeah. One has to think about what could have been.
Yeah, for sure. I think he could have been 5th or 6th at the very least.
At least, yeah.
Yeah. If not a podium, if he maybe tried that one stop, or the one stop, but...
Oh, that would have been so cool.
It would have been. Oh, well. But, there's 3 races left, and Aston Martin seems to be on the up and up, so who knows what could happen.
Yeah.
But back to Ferrari. Sainz's bad luck continues as he takes his 6th DNF of the season. Poor guy.
Yeah, not a whole lot to say about that. Just sucks.
Yeah.
He found the gravel and just... Wait, did he crash in the gravel? Was he the one who beached? Or is that Bottas?
No, that was Bottas.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wrong for a hard car.
Yeah. No, Sainz did not make an acquaintance with the gravel this week, surprisingly. Not surprisingly, but yeah, he's had really, really poor luck this season. Hopefully it gets better next season, because he's only 65 points behind Leclerc, and I think he has 5 more DNFs than Leclerc. Well, actually 4 more.
That's pretty impressive.
So that's 12 points a race. So I would say Sainz would probably be in the fight for 2nd place with Leclerc and Perez if it wasn't for his really bad luck this season.
Easily, yeah.
So we'll see next season. He's a quality driver. He just needs to not get crashed into like he has 4 times. Or have his engine explode. All those fun things that happened this season.
It's a vicious game of fortune.
Yep. But it can happen to anybody. That's how it goes in racing. So moving on to our championship standings. Obviously, Max has won the Drivers' Championship previously, so that has not changed. Charles Leclerc has taken 2nd away from Sergio Perez. He's only up by 2 points at the moment, so that could still swing either way in the next 3 races. George Russell is now 16 points ahead of Carlos Sainz in P5, so he's got a pretty cushy lead in terms of that area of the grid. But, anything can happen. And there's still 3 races left. That's, a pretty big point swing could happen. We'll just have to see how that shakes out. But Russell's looking pretty good right now. As far as the Constructors' Championship goes, Red Bull Racing has won the championship, as we said earlier. They
Such
are
a
almost
massive lead.
I know, they're almost 200 points clear of Ferrari. Ferrari's in 2nd, and Mercedes is in 3rd, and then it's a long way down to Alpine and McLaren in 4th and 5th. Alpine and McLaren are only separated by 11 points, so that could still very much go either way.
Yeah, trading blows all season.
Yeah, that's been an exciting one to watch.
Yeah.
Watch Lando Norris versus Alpine. Sorry, I don't mean to shoot shots fired so hard. But yeah, anyway, Mercedes is about, 53 points behind Ferrari, so that is probably insurmountable at this point.
Yeah.
Unless Ferrari absolutely melts apart, which I would not put them past.
It's been known to happen.
I would not put it past them, yeah. And then Haas broke their tie with AlphaTauri this week to move into 8th place.
Yeah, so we have a tight fight for 4th and 5th and 6th and 7th. Alfa Romeo is only 3 points ahead of Aston Martin.
Yeah, and the way Seb's been driving, that could easily change.
Yep.
I will say, I think these standings I have are now incorrect because I made them before the Alonso penalty, but it should be pretty close to the same.
Yeah.
I think Alpine might be a little bit closer to McLaren now, less than 11 points, and then I think Haas actually has 2 or 3 more points than AlphaTauri instead of just 1 point. But anyway, I don't think the order changes at all, at least.
No.
So, Moving on to our overtake of the week, I gave this to Sebastian Vettel on his move on Magnussen on the last lap of the race at Coda. That man was just driving like an animal, and and it was all smoky because of the fireworks too. There was a lot going on, so that's why I gave it to him there.
Yeah, honorable mention though, Charles Leclerc.
On Verstappen.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, just absolutely sends it.
Yeah, that was a really good one. That I think that was mine until I saw the Vettel move, and I'm like, no, that's the one.
Yeah. It got relegated to honorable mention.
Yep. So, moving on to our pit stop championship. Yuki Tsunoda takes another dub. Wow. Another AlphaTauri win. With Sergio Perez close behind in second place, followed by Pierre Gasly, Lando Norris, and Charles Leclerc rounding out the top 5. And then 5 through 10, finishing the points were Max Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, and Latifi.
Incredible. He beat Sebastian Vettel.
Yeah. Well, Vettel only really had one pit stop in contention for this. So, but yeah. So the standings in the pit stop championship haven't really changed too much. We've got a Gasly Tsunoda 3-4 though. I think that they knocked Vettel down a spot after this week, or I think Tsunoda did. But it's very much still a Red Bull 1-2. Pretty sure Perez has won the championship for that at this point.
Easily.
I think, actually this race, I think he won the pit stop championship. So there you go. Congrats to Perez for having the least amount of stationary time this season. Constructors wise, Red Bull won the championship last time, or probably way before last time. But man, AlphaTauri just gapped Ferrari. That's insane. They are now, what is that, 84 points ahead?
Yep. Red Bull sister team.
Yeah. So both Red Bull teams absolutely killing it on pit stops this season. I think Crofty said, or maybe it was Martin Brundle during the race, that Perez had the 4 fastest pit stops this season.
Yeah, it's just
like
been
the
blazing.
top 4. Yeah, it's insane. Red Bull's pit stops have always been crazy good.
Yeah, even after the pit stop rules changes. I was kind of sad about the changes because it means we wouldn't see any more, like sub 2 second changes. I remember, was it last season or the season before that we got a 1.8 out of Red Bull?
I think it was last season.
That was incredible to watch.
It's like a 1.84. It was like nuts.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I honestly don't think it'll be that long until we start seeing sub 2 second pit stops again. Because we've already had a 2 second flat pit stop. Like 2.0.
Really? I thought that was
I think we did
2:09 or something like that. I guess that's pretty close.
It might have been, but I mean, we're getting there. That's less than 1/10 of a second away.
That is splitting hairs. I'll give you that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if in the next couple of years we get a couple. I don't know if we'll ever get down to 1.8 again, but we'll see.
A man can dream.
A man can definitely dream. So let's move on to our predictions for the United States Grand Prix. Wow, what a horrible
show. So wrong. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, not
you
not
go
even
first.
Close.
You go first.
Okay, I'll go first. So to remind everybody of the top 5, the actual top 5, it was Verstappen, Hamilton, Leclerc, Perez, and Russell. My guess was Verstappen, Perez, Sainz, Leclerc, and Hamilton as the top 5, with Ricciardo as my dark horse. So I got the winner, but that was it.
At what cost?
Yeah, at what cost? All the cost. How about you, Ben?
Mine was even worse. I had Perez winning this, which didn't happen. I had Perez, Verstappen, Hamilton, Leclerc, Alonso, and Gasly. So I did at least have... No, there's nothing to salvage that.
Well, you went for it with Alonso and then had Gasly as the dark horse. I respect that. And Alonso really probably would have been 5th if he didn't have that airplane crash.
Yeah,
well,
and technically the top 4 I did have correct, just in the wrong order.
Yeah, if you shifted Perez down to 4th, you would have got him all right.
Yeah. Oh, well,
Bummer.
next time.
So fastest lap went to George Russell this week. I guessed Perez.
And I had Verstappen. I thought that would be... Yeah, okay. It's fine.
I mean, he did have it until Russell pitted on the last lap to take it.
What is my purpose? You get fastest lap. Oh my god.
Driver of the day went to Sebastian Vettel this week. Deservedly so. I went for Sergio Perez.
And I had Ricardo. Yeah.
Yeah, poor guy. I put him as my dark horse thinking that he might have this standout performance at United States, his last hurrah in the US, but that didn't happen.
Yeah, we were all hoping.
Yeah. So, Mexican Grand Prix is next week. Let's go over our predictions for that.
Okay.
Why don't you go first, Ben?
Okay, I have Hamilton, Perez, Verstappen, Sainz, and Leclerc. And then I have Stroll as my dark horse because he's actually been qualifying pretty well. And, well, especially after this race, I think he maybe deserves a little bit of success after the crash in today's race.
Nice. So you got Hamilton winning, continuing his streak of winning in every season he competes in, which he almost did today.
Yeah.
Not quite though.
Yeah.
I like it. I honestly hope that he wins a race this year to keep that record going because that would just be such a cool record to have at the end of your career.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope that's the case, but I actually went for Perez winning this one. I hope it happens, man. If he wins the Mexican Grand Prix, we're going to see absolute carnage at the podium ceremony. So I have Perez winning, followed by Verstappen and Hamilton on the podium. And then 4th and 5th, I had Russell and Sainz. And my dark horse was Norris. And I just realized I don't have Leclerc in the top 5, so... Maybe
too late now.
We'll have an engine failure. Yeah, we'll see. It's low oxygen up in Mexico City, so maybe their engines will blow up. I don't know. That's fingers crossed.
Okay, helmet Marco.
I'm sorry. I'm not a Ferrari hater. I promise.
Okay.
But anyway.
Anyways, fastest lap I had Russell because once again, Toto, what is my purpose? You get fastest lap. Oh my god.
Okay, I had Verstappen because I just think that he will have it. That's pretty much my reasoning.
He do be pretty quick though.
He do be pretty fast driver.
Driver of the day. I see you put Norris. Would you like to defend your choice?
Do you want to know the honest reason why I put Lando Norris?
I really do. Yeah.
I was gonna put Perez, but I already put Perez winning. And I knew that you were going to want to choose Perez to win the race. So I was going to give you Perez for driver of the day. And Lando Norris, I think he's been the reason I chose him instead of another driver was he's been out of everybody that's kind of not part of the top group. He's been doing really well recently.
Very consistent midfield.
6th or 7th, yeah. So I think there's a possibility that he has a pretty decent race. Could possibly end up in the upper echelons of the grid at the end.
Okay. I like it. Yeah, I put Perez. Because it's the Mexican Grand Prix.
Yeah,
he's from
it's
Mexico.
Almost certainly.
People love that shit.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So, before we get to the end of the episode, Ben, do you have any words of wisdom for the wonderful people?
Yes, I do. Shoot your shot. It doesn't have to be, with a girl or a guy or whoever you tend to be romantically interested in, but, at your job. If you think you deserve a raise and you've been there for a while, and you're like, I should go ask my boss for a raise. Yeah, go shoot that shot. Go ask your boss for a raise. Go, branch out with friends. If you're worried about, maybe they're too busy to go do something with you, try it anyways. Reach out, be social, just, yeah. So, shoot your shot.
Shoot your shot. Good words. I mean, the worst they can say is no, right?
Exactly.
Exactly. Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Ben. And thank you everybody so much for listening to this episode of RevHang. If you enjoyed it, leave a like or rating on the platform you listen on because it really, really helps us out. We're trying to get out there, and so any little bit helps us grow. If you'd like to follow our thoughts and opinions on the motorsport world, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at RevHang Media. If you have any thoughts or questions about racing or even about us, post a tweet at #RevHangPodcast, and we may feature your question on the next show. You can follow Ben on Instagram at BenjiMeetsWorld and or myself at 2n_squared. While you're at it, go check out our website, RevHang.com, where you can find a calendar of upcoming races, updated standings for the racing series we talk about, along with our often extremely inaccurate predictions for the F1 season. We will return in a week to talk about the Mexican Grand Prix, but until then, I've been Nathan.
And I'm Ben.
Thanks for hanging out.
See you guys later.